for me, it's all about dehumanizing technology, is that through these new technologies, we can now give control back to people in their environment and really create an interface to the building and the different building technology systems for them to also react based on people's feelings and perceptions.
Welcome to a brand new episode of our podcast, Human and AI, Mind, Machines, and the Gradient Descent.
Thanks to each and every single one of you that you tuned in to listen and to learn. We are Uli and Avery, and our today's genius mind is Franziska Dolak from Smart Infrastructure in Zug, Switzerland. She's a human-centered, inspiring, and passionate woman who never gives up creating new opportunities. But enough of an introduction, let's dive right into it. Grüezi wohl, Franziska. Thanks for joining us today. We're very, very grateful to have you here. Can you maybe describe yourself in a couple of minutes? Who are you and how did you actually end up at Siemens?
Hi, thank you so much. Grüezi, servus, everything. Very international today. No, thank you for the kind words of introduction. Yeah, so my name is Franziska, and I'm head of digital applications and services as part of our Smart Infrastructure organization. Meaning me and my team together, we are driving to really push digital HVAC service and into a new dimension with that, really exploring various innovation fields and looking into how can we create value out of data. And so I think it's a fantastic playing field, right? Because I really consider everything around IoT, artificial intelligence, I consider it a design language that really allows us to create new outstanding experiences for people. And exactly this point of humanizing technology is also what brought me to Siemens, I think roughly now 6 or 7 years ago. And the story was that during my studies in Switzerland, I was diving into this design thinking. It was for me really combining many of the things that I'd always loved before in terms of creating the new and really creating something meaningful for someone and solving relevant problems. And at that, we got the opportunity to travel to Stanford University to really introduce the projects we were working on with corporate partners. And there I met my fantastic colleague, Bettina Maisch. And, we got talking, and she was then the reason in the end to actually also bring me to Siemens to start building up really this competence around human-centric innovation for the Siemens organization.
But you just kick-started your new role, right? And so I guess, the usual process would be, welcome, cheering everybody, maybe in, I don't know, a little town hall or a team session, right? Is that, how is the onboarding different? Or is that, hey, we are, digital company anyway, right? We do that all via our Teams or via digital toolings.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely different. I think I'm in a bit of a lucky situation that I knew my team beforehand, just all the people, and that helps at least. And maybe in a rush of foresight, we had kind of our first team workshop end of February before the whole COVID really started taking up speed in Europe. And yes, it makes it more difficult because, I like to look people in the eyes and kind of see, where's it they're standing? Do they really agree with something? Or is it just, just saying something, to move on with the topic? And I think, that makes it a bit more difficult. But like I said, it's a bit of a lucky situation that I knew the team already in parts. And I think also with the digital and virtual tools, we have quite a few ways now to stay in contact. And I'm just quite happy also seeing over the last couple of weeks, that we're developing a certain kind of humor and people seem to be really bought in and also ready to support and drive things forward and wanting to kind of co-create together. While at the same time, right, the other part of onboarding is also, for me to really now understand the domain, the market, the technology stack behind it, everything. I think that's a lot more difficult, to be honest.
Yeah, as you say, there are very difficult times right now. But do you see also opportunities or like positive impacts on innovation and the digital transformation in your field right now?
So I think when we look towards really virtual team collaboration, I think there has been huge advancements. It feels like things are possible now that, we used to talk about for months and years, possibly even. In terms of our business, I think yes, definitely, because I mean, with a smart infrastructure business, right, it's all about creating environments that care. And for myself specifically, I'm in the smart building domain. And there we've always had, or we always saw an area of opportunity when it came to kind of remote monitoring, access and control of equipment, and remote servicing. But also, topics like in supermarkets nowadays, right? People counting and stuff, right? And I see it in the supermarkets here a lot, where they have one or two people at the entrance really counting people and, ensuring that all the processes are running smoothly, while at the same time there's technology to do that. And I think the value proposition of that has just gotten so much stronger because people understand now also more and more that most of the things we're talking about in building automation, it's not a luxury, it's not a nice to have, but it can really save lives and de-risk operations and really create value there. And so I see the pace picking up quite a bit in terms of also the digital maturity we encounter in the market.
Yeah, that's very inspiring, actually. And yeah, also to just see the bright side of such an actually negative situation, and just like also realizing that we have to keep up the pace. In preparation for this interview, I was in your LinkedIn profile, and then I found a very interesting quote. And you said there that you used to think that you needed to be at the very high ranks in a corporation or the general of an army to really make something happen and to really make a change. But the only thing you truly need is to start a movement. I think it sounds very insightful, but what do you really mean by that?
Well, I think I'm just thinking, where did this all start? But I always felt like, yes, you had to get the approval, of your manager or your manager's manager in order to get something done. And that was honestly something that was super frustrating for me because it felt like, you're having this great idea and you have this gut feeling, yes, this is exactly what we need and exactly what we need to do and where we need to take a certain topic, for example. And then what basically happens is, you start running and you're super excited and you basically hit the wall. Might be the case, right? Because maybe somebody else isn't that excited about it or just also doesn't have, the knowledge and expertise in that specific area to really understand and be able to make an informed decision whether or not that makes sense. And what we figured out, in the whole area of customer-centric innovation, we needed to create a different organizational context and environment for us to be able to do that, and also for the teams and product managers and R&D to be able to get close to our customer, which means we basically needed to start rethinking how does our organizational system work. And a big part of that is taking ownership. And what I figured out, and I think you mentioned it before, Arbery, year ago, roughly, in our Zug headquarters, we opened our innovation space, Spark. And the coolest reactions we got when opening was, on the one hand, first of all, people and saying we never thought this would have been possible, and the second reaction was about the way the space actually looks like and feels like, where I got a lot of questions of people, kind of observing the construction work that was done on the space from afar and saying, oh, well, this won't be opening for a long, long time because it has kind of this tool shop kind of feel. We have a lot of wood paneling and stuff, which is very different than the traditional look and feel of our office. And that was quite surprising. And all of what we did there was only possible because we started a movement, right? We recognized in the organization, we have project teams, especially in the area of, let's say, more really radical and disruptive innovation that do things differently and that really needed dedicated spaces for a certain amount of time. They are working in a very different manner with less hierarchies in their team and really take decision making on team level. And so we just recognized there is a need in the organization. And that's what I mean by starting a movement, right? So we really went back to leveraging reality as a reference. So what is it that we as an organization need? How can it fit into the overall transformation that we're currently undergoing, and then driving it forward? And so it was really an initiative that kind of grew bottom up and was then in the end a CEO level initiative.
Yeah, you mentioned already, right? The Spark. You were the driver of the Spark innovation space. Can you share a couple of, what kind of innovative aspects went out, and how it ain't that easy, right? If you work in an existing company and it's like, okay, here's a space, here's a platform that you can leverage, make use of that, right? Collaborate, be innovative, right? This is obviously maybe sometimes also wishful thinking, right? How do you get a buy-in from people, and can you spin a couple of best practices sharings that you have that went out? That is
Yeah, sure. I think one big part was already, involving people from the get-go. So really designing the space around people and their needs. What I just, mentioned also with the project teams, for example. And I think also there, actually, the space design plays quite a big role, right? If you're creating such a super polished space, then no one dares touch it, and with that, you're limiting people's creativity and also their willpower and courage to actually shape something and change something around it. But I think what we invested heavily then once the space was done and we kind of had set these kind of building blocks as a foundation was we invested a lot into skill building and community management. So really finding ways for people to kind of come into the space and interact with the space. So for example, we provided kind of crash courses where for 2-hour sessions, we found someone in the organization that had a specific skill to share, for example, around low resolution prototyping or how to set up and facilitate a design sprint. So really kind of new types and modes of working with teams, and invited people in kind of to share that knowledge. And with that, people also understood, hey, I mean, if I have something, I can contribute to that as well. I don't just have to be the one, listening in and taking all this with me and benefiting, but I can also give back. We started having so-called knowledge sharing session. They're called Buildings and Friends, where every 2 weeks we found a speaker inside or outside the organization to kind of bring new impulses in, and for people to just, come have a drink together, or just, an informal chat, and really bring a new topic that we can start to also have a very different culture of communication and conversation and critical discourse around it. Not just the one I'm presenting and you're judging me for whatever you're seeing and hearing, but really the one that's driven by interest.
So we talked a lot about innovation, about the innovation space and which impact it has. What would you say are the reasons why most corporate innovation programs actually fail?
I think, like for me, many of the things that I'm seeing in the world, I would probably call it innovation theater. I don't really see it as, or a lot of those, as honest efforts in really creating a sustained corporate DNA of innovation. And that's what it's about, right? It's about a sustainable effort and making that part of our corporate DNA, the way we do things, the way we tick, always putting customer first and stretching our comfort zone and diving into new areas. And I think many organizations have kind of just subconsciously, I don't even think it was a conscious decision, taken kind of incremental innovation of, that's how we do things around here. And so if you ask for reasons why I feel that many of those initiatives and programs fail, is because I don't think there is a clear innovation strategy behind. I think that would be one. And just to illustrate a bit of what do I mean by that, it starts with the question of what do we understand with the word innovation? And research and literature is quite clear on that, that there isn't just this one innovation. I mean, there's different types depending on how far you stretch it on the technological side and or the business model side, right? So get clear on what is it we mean when we talk innovation in our organizational context, and make a conscious decision in which areas do we want to invest in.
So it's we have a similar aspect, right? So on the one side, we want to advance technology, right? Pushing the boundaries of what a technology can do. On the other side, obviously, we also collaborate in the Siemens AI Lab, with the former team, I guess, right? On the aspects, how do we make design thinking, lean methodologies, starting a customer journey, identifying pains and gains, facilitating with structured canvassing, and so on, right? So that is for most techie geeks, right? You say, what? I want to, I want to explore the capabilities of technology, right?
Yeah.
But and that seems to be a downer, let's say, right, for AI or machine learning geeks. It's like, no, I want to, don't you understand, right? This is so awesome, right, to explore.
Mhm.
And on the other side, there's this vital aspect of customer centric innovation, and I guess design thinking and lean methodologies are still the way to go, right? And it's still important in the same also in the domain of industrial AI to use these kinds of processes. Maybe can you share some of the best practices? How do you facilitate such high performance teams, or so tech geeks best? How do you how do you shape them?
Well, yeah, probably it's not that black and white, but you're right? I think it's really about bringing the both of all worlds together, and that what really makes a successful team, right? That you have different people, a diverse set of people from different disciplines with different mindsets coming to the table to really drive something forward. So it is probably definitely also about creating space and also maybe fostering a little bit that creative friction, I might say. So I think that's really one aspect of a high performance team, of really putting value and strengthening strength of the different people, as compared to expecting everyone to get to a similar level of, let's say, technical expertise and business modeling skills, and customer know-how, right? I think it's really about bringing the best out of all worlds together. I think second aspect is really around creating a shared team purpose, and then that for that team purpose and the strategic objective of what is it we're trying to achieve, and why also does it make sense from a business point of view, to really give the decision making power into the team, because right, they will be the experts. They more that they dive into the topic, they know exactly what's possible, what's feasible, what's desirable from a people point of view, and also possible and viable in terms of a business model. So I think really then the core entity of organization needs to be the team. And I think then the last point is really what you mentioned around, those lean and design thinking methodologies, which, by the way, I think are timeless. I think, putting your customer first and generally people first is always the way to go. And you can't go wrong with that. I think the third aspect is.
So you just mentioned that design and lean methodologies are timeless. Do you have any recommendations maybe for the audience out there who want to get started with those methodologies? Are there some good papers or YouTube videos or online courses that they could watch or look at?
Yeah, most definitely. I think there's a wealth of material out there. There are certain books, for example, Change by Design by Tim Brown, or the Design Thinking Playbooks. I think you can also find a lot on YouTube, and there's definitely also a couple of courses out there. One platform that I personally like when it comes to online learning is the Interaction Design Foundation. They have quite a cool concept of, you buy kind of a yearly membership and can take as many classes as you'd like, including design thinking, user experience, user research, and the likes. I think it's quite a cool concept, and that's really helpful. But I think ultimately it's about learning by doing. Yes, start diving into the fundamentals and understand the basics around the process, the underlying principles, and also the tool set that you have available. But then I think it very fast is really about applying it in practice and really understanding. So what does it mean standing out there with a customer and doing an observation? And then how do you start working with the data and generate insights out of it? And there, I mean, you have various opportunities. If you don't have any corporate projects that you feel like, yes, I can join in and learn from that, I think there's a lot of opportunities, and also more socially driven initiative of let's say also those type of kind of impact weeks for design thinking, where you can apply as a participant or possibly at some point even coach to really get into the doing. And when it then comes to that, you're thinking about, okay, how can I implement those processes, technologies, principles, and mindsets in our organization? I think the only recommendation I can give is, don't bring in the different approaches. In our organization, I recognized when I arrived, they're undergoing the whole kind of agile transformation with agile development, and really those fast iterative cycles of prototyping, testing, learning. And, then I was coming in with this whole shebang of lean startup and design thinking methodologies. And I found, it was confusing to people. They said, okay, now I just understood this whole agile, and now I need to learn design thinking before I can apply it. And that's really not about. So what we did is we kind of phrased it all under the umbrella of value creation, because that's ultimately the goal, right? I mean, we want to create something valuable for someone, and then basically really provided kind of the thought, leadership, and mindset to people. And we're starting to bring that into the teams and how we work on a day-to-day basis. And then just basically offering them the whole toolkit mixed out of all the different approaches.
So we need to talk about AI at smart infrastructure, right? What role plays AI at smart infrastructure? And are there any cases you're really excited about and you want to share here?
Yes, I mean, there's definitely a few cases I'm quite excited about. So one comes when you look towards use cases and also new use cases emerging through these technologies, of how we can manage required energy loads in buildings, right? With, not only people then, living or working in this building, having a certain energy demand, but also now with kind of e-mobility coming in and fast charging of how can we manage that. And I think that's just a few things that, just haven't been possible before, of kind of the building also moving more and more into a kind of self-adaptive mode in a way. The other thing that I'm really excited about, and I think you mentioned it in the introduction, that for me, it's all about dehumanizing technology, is that through these new technologies, we can now give control back to people in their environment and really create an interface to the building and the different building technology systems for them to also react based on people's feelings and perceptions. And that's just something, this is a total shift from the way where this industry is historically coming from. And I think here, really new technologies and also specifically artificial intelligence is playing a huge role. Or, I mean, just consider the project that we're working on together with you guys on really the synthetic ambient sensors, right? Inferring data from the environment that is so much less intrusive or obtrusive than we know in the past. And so I think also now more and more it becomes, we get this opportunity to also really create value out of data, to create meaningful experiences.
You were just emphasizing the aspect of humanizing technology. What do you actually mean by that? And what is the role of human in AI? Do you think AI is rather the problem, or is it the opportunity?
I think AI is definitely an opportunity, and like with all technologies, right, we need to gain an understanding of, what is the potential and where can we take this, and where can we create meaningful value and create new experiences for people and kind of redefine how things work in a certain way. And like all of those, right, I think there's a balance that needs to be found on, in how far does it create value, and where does it maybe go a bit too much and becomes too much. And so the aspect of humanizing technology is for me really, when I started in this industry roughly 3 years ago, we went to talk to employees and tenants in various office buildings around the globe, from really like super smart buildings to kind of normal average type of office buildings. And especially in the super smart buildings, what people were basically telling us is that they feel as a slave towards technology. They really felt like what with everything they're doing is they're continuously feeding this technology, these robots, but they weren't sure, what is it that I'm getting out of that? People were really, really overwhelmed. The interaction, it wasn't meaningful. It wasn't easy to use. It wasn't intuitive. And I think that's really where this aspect of humanizing technology comes in, right? It needs to serve the people and not the other way around. It can't have kind of this kind of, in German you'd say, Selbstzweck. It really needs about, once again, solving a relevant problem for someone and changing something for the better. And otherwise, maybe the old solution is just fine.
Franziska, thank you so much for your positive outlook here at the end. I think we could really talk to you for hours, but we're already at the end of this interview. And this is why I wanted to start with our closing game. And it's very, very simple. So I will just give you a couple of sentence starters, and you will just finish them with one word or one sentence maximum. So Siemens is
diverse.
Innovation
is growth. Actually, I think the only way for an organization to kind of grow, develop itself, and with that, at the end of the day, to survive.
Yeah, I really like that. My optimism comes from
good question. Loving what I do, and being able to have impact in really creating our future.
That's beautiful. The person that inspires me the most is,
I would say, my partner, honestly, because he never stops learning and working on himself, wanting to become better. And I think that's a huge inspiration to me.
my favorite TEDx talk is.
My favorite TEDx talk is the one on the power of vulnerability by Brené Brown. Just because I really think if I can't be myself at work, I'm suppressing my expressiveness and creativity. And so I think we really need to do better in creating workplace environments where people can be themselves, so we really can thrive forward with motivation, with power, and purpose.
Franzi, merci vielmal, wie man sagt, oder? For being, a colleague and being the guest of the session, right? It is a really pleasure to talk to you and have this conversation with you. And folks out there, stay tuned. There is so much to come. Stay bold, committed, open-minded, and hear you at the next Siemens Reale podcast. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys. It was such a pleasure.